All right, if you're aiming for JEE 2026, you've probably looked at the physics syllabus and, yeah, it's a lot. It feels like this massive, impossible mountain of concepts and formulas. But don't worry. Today, we're going to lay out a clear strategy to actually conquer it.
So, here's the game plan. We'll start by looking at this physics mountain and why it feels so intimidating. Then, we'll talk about working smarter, not harder, before we get into the core of it, a powerful three-step strategy. And finally, we'll see how all this gives you a huge strategic advantage.
Okay, let's just get right into it. That feeling of being totally overwhelmed, it's real, and it's completely normal. You know, you're one of those long revision sessions, and the formulas just keep coming. It feels like you're just not making any progress.
1 second, you're supposed to just instantly recall the equation for a projectile's trajectory, and the very next second, boom, you need the formula for an Atwood machine from laws of motion. And then you get hit with this beast, the work energy theorem. This thing connects friction, kinetic energy, potential energy, everything, all at once.
Seeing these formulas thrown at you one after another, especially in those marathon revision videos, honestly, it feels like someone's asking you to memorize an entire library overnight. It's just an impossibly huge mountain of information.
So this brings us to a really crucial shift in how you think about this. It's about working smarter. I mean, what if the goal isn't to climb that mountain by memorizing every single rock and pebble? What if there's a much more efficient path to the top? That is a strategic shift we're talking about. You really have a choice here. You can either use brute force, just drown yourself in books and try to cover everything, or you can work smart and build a clear, direct staircase to your goal. Instead of trying to memorize every last formula, you focus your energy on the topics that carry the most weight and the formulas that show up again and again. It's not about putting in more hours, it's about making your hours more effective.
So, how do we actually do this? Well, we've got a three-step battle plan. First, we analyze the battlefield. Then we isolate our key weapons. And finally, we run high-intensity drills to make sure we're ready for anything.
Step 1 is all about analysis. Think about it. You can't win a battle if you don't know the terrain. For the JEE, knowing the terrain means understanding which chapters the marks are really coming from.
The thing is, the exam board, the NTA, they don't give you a roadmap, so we have to become detectives and create our own. By digging into the last 5 years of exam papers, we can actually uncover hidden patterns and see which topics are consistently the most valuable.
And when you do that analysis, you find something amazing. It's basically the 80-20 rule in action. A pretty small group of high-impact topics consistently makes up over 60% of the questions on the exam. I mean, historically, things like modern physics, electrodynamics, and mechanics have carried a ton of weight. This isn't just a small tip, it's a massive strategic advantage. This is where you need to focus your energy. Okay, so now that you know where to focus your fight, you need to pick the right tools for the job. And that means zooming in on those high-impact chapters and finding the specific formulas that appear over and over and over again.
And the numbers here are pretty wild. Some analyses actually show that if you just master the top 25 key formulas, you could be looking at over 60 marks. Just let that sink in for a second. We're not talking about hundreds of formulas. We're talking about 25. That's the power of isolating what really matters.
So for example, inside projectile motion, which we know is a high-impact topic, the time of flight formula is an absolute classic. It's a weapon you just have to have in your arsenal, sharpened and ready to go.
And so is this one, the radius of curvature at the highest point of a projectile's path. This is another one of those concepts that gets tested a lot, and knowing the formula directly saves you critical time in the exam hall.
And that brings us to the final step, mastery. So you've identified the battlefield. You've chosen your best weapons. Now it's time for some high-intensity drills to turn all that knowledge into pure muscle memory. And you know, this totally changes the way you should look at those long marathon revision videos. They are not for learning concepts from scratch. No way. They are your training ground. They are your final drills to build speed and accuracy with the exact formulas you've already identified as being the most important.
So when you put all of this together, you get a serious strategic advantage. This method cuts right through the chaos. It transforms that awful feeling of being overwhelmed into the confidence that you get when you're actually in control of your preparation.
So here it is, your path from overwhelmed to empowered. Simple, right? You analyze the terrain to find the high-value targets. Then you isolate your most effective weapons, those key formulas. And finally, you drill until using them is second nature.
This is what preparing smarter, not just harder, is all about.
And that leaves us with one last thought. At the end of the day, the difference between just exhaustive, brute force effort and an effective strategy, well, that's what separates the people who get crushed by the JEE mountain from the ones who find a clear path to the peak. The choice is yours.